Hi everyone, thank you for coming in today. I'm Manogna and I work with the programming team here at MAP. Today we opened our doors to a new exhibition in the ground floor in the Infosys Gallery titled Shape of a Thought, Letters from Ram Kumar. We hope you have had a chance to look at it. If you haven't already, please go check it out in the ground floor after this discussion. So in conjunction with this exhibition, we decided to have this panel discussion today, which will be moderated by Priya Chauhan, who also curated the exhibition. And it will essentially delve into Ram Kumar's profound impact on Indian modern art. She will be in conversation with Meera Menezes, who is an art writer and independent curator. She has written extensively on modern and contemporary Indian art over the past 3 decades. She has written for Art Asia Pacific, the Hindu Mint, Take on Art, the Indian Quarterly, The Wire, First Post, and Critical Collective, among several others. Joined by her is S.G. Vasudev, who is from Mysore and a renowned Indian painter known for his symbolic works. He is the founder of Cholamandal Artists Village and now lives in Bengaluru as a visual artist. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome the 3 of them on stage. Okay. And also Emma and Santosh will be interpreting this conversation for us today. So yes, thank you.
Hello Meera. Hello sir. Thank you so much for taking out the time and being here with us. It is quite a pleasure since both of you have such immense contribution, not just in the art field, but have also interacted and seen this artist that we speak of today. That's actually where I would love to start. So I see many familiar faces. I know everybody has seen the exhibition. If you haven't seen, it's on right now on the ground floor. It's called Shape of a Thought. And with this conversation, I hope we are able to shape our thoughts even better in understanding this pioneering Indian artist and whom we are also looking at as a writer, really bringing to fore his multiple talents and appreciating them. Why don't we actually start with that before we speak of the artworks and the letters and what was happening in India around that time? Who was Ram Kumar as a person? And since you've both met him, what did he carry in his personality, in his presence, and in his words? How were your interactions with him? And if you could paint a picture of this person so that we all can sort of start with that.
Okay, so I live in Delhi, and so Ram Kumar and his wife were a familiar figure on the exhibition circuit. We would see them at galleries looking at art. But I really got into a closer interaction with him when I decided to write a book on V.S. Gaitonde. There was very little information available on the artist, and I had heard from Krishan Khanna that Ram Kumar had been a good friend of his. I think this was about 2011 that I called up Ram Kumar and I said, I'm writing this book on Gaitonde. Would it be possible for me to come and interview you? And he was so generous. Immediately he was like, yes, there's no book on him. We need to do something. And this was not just about himself. I mean, normally an artist would say, why aren't you writing about me? But he was automatically, no, we need to do something for Gaitonde. And so in 2013, I finally had a very long interview with Ram Kumar. I was just rereading the interview yesterday, to just refresh my memory, because a lot of what he said didn't actually make it in the book, because obviously you have to edit. And I remember meeting him, it was a cold winter's day in Delhi. He was sort of bundled up with his muffler, sitting in a sitting room. There was a picture or I think a sketch of him, a portrait of him, which I was quite intrigued by. And then he just started talking about his friendship, with Gaitonde. And as I said earlier, what I found about him was that he was extremely humorous. He had a twinkle in his eye, and also very generous, not just with his time, but also of what he narrated to me. So I want to just tell you an anecdote, which, quite funny. Once, Hussain wanted to organize an Eid, an outing. And Hussain was known to be notoriously late. And so when Ram Kumar found Hussain at his doorstep at 10 in the morning, he was like, "How come you're so punctual?" And he was like, no, Gaitonde is coming, and Gaitonde is very punctual, so I had to be here before that, right? And then he took all of them to, to the Jama Masjid area for an Eid celebration. And then the other thing, what Ram Kumar did, he did a lot for Gaitonde, because and I'm sorry I'm speaking a lot about Gai, because my entry to Ram Kumar really was from what, he narrated, about Gaitonde. And what he did really was that he ensured that, when you had the Kalidas Sammelan Award, that he was on the jury, and he wrote sort of a letter so that Gaitonde got that particular award, which was a lakh of rupees, and that was a lot of money. And Gaitonde had just met with a terrible, terrible accident, and he needed the money. And so, Ram Kumar was always thinking about his friends, how he could help them. He and his wife would send a dabba of food every day to Ram Kumar. I mean, I'll talk about the area and the other friendships later, but what I wanted to say was that Ram Kumar was, he had that, he was reticent, but he still had that sense of humor, and he was, tremendously caring about his friends.
Thanks. You have given enough information about Ram Kumar. As far as I'm concerned, I come from Bangalore and partly in Chennai. I have met him twice or thrice in the gallery in Delhi. Very nice man, gentleman, and not very talkative like other artists. So many artists are very talkative, including me. But Ram Kumar was not like that. One doesn't know whether his writing influenced him or he influenced his writing. It's very difficult to say. And as I told you, I think our friend has given enough information about Ram Kumar. And as the discussion go on, conversation go on, let me join wherever I can. Yeah.
I think both of you have already tapped into this, but there was a sense of kinship. What was the environment like in that period? How much did the artists stay in touch with each other, irrespective of the groups they were a part of, or what was happening socially, politically, what kind of friendships were blooming, irrespective of their practices in different parts? So you can maybe tell us more about what was happening here. And Meera, if you can tell us a little bit more about these pioneering Indian modernist artists that we speak of now, and they were just friends hanging out. How is that happening at the same time as we're also considering Ram being this very introspective, introverted, sort of a recluse of a person, because that's how he's spoken of mostly?
I feel that, as you said, he's introspective artist. Unlike many others who are very outspoken about their work, even Tayyab Mehta, I thought he was a very introspective, but he could speak very well. He had visited Cholamandal Artist Village when we started in 1968, and I think his daughter was a dancer, and I think that's how he came to Chennai. And he liked the idea. He said, maybe at one point of time I may think of moving to South. It didn't happen anyway. I don't know whether Ram Kumar ever came to Chennai or Cholamandal, for that matter. Cholamandal is an artist village as you all, I don't know how many people know about it. It was started in 1966, and I am one of the founding members of the village. The idea behind the village is it's not a school of painting. It is to make a living. Artists came together. Artists came together to live by doing some craft work, to go with their work, artwork, and to make money out of it. That's how it started. And all sorts of artists, first come, first serve basis, it was open. So anyway, it was an opening thing for me as an artist. And it helped me a lot as an artist, Cholamandal Artist Village. And there was some sort of an abstraction which many people think of Ram Kumar as an abstract painter. But I think abstraction was very much there in the southern Indian painters, particularly Chennai. And there was Panikkar, who was a figurative painter, who was our teacher, principal of the College of Art, but he turned to some sort of a, he wouldn't call himself a tantric painter, but he had some influence of tantrism in his work. And many other artists, like Haridasan, for that matter, who is no more, he is a tantric painter himself. He said he used to believe in it and he used to practice tantra in his house. And another friend of mine is Adi Mulam. When it comes to abstraction, I thought of Adi Mulam. Adi Mulam is a very figurative, very good figurative painter. As you all know, his drawings are excellent. Whether he drew to Mahatma Gandhi, Nehru, or any human being, he did excellent job. He was my classmate, and then he once I asked him, how is it, your drawing is figurative and your painting is abstract, complete? He said, I enjoy that way. I don't know how, because it's very difficult for anyone to be two different characters. Figurative painting is something which is very, very, for that matter, I am quasi-figurative painter. When you see me applying canvas first, it will all be abstract. Then figures start coming in. I can't do without figures. And of course, abstraction is very much there. You can see the abstraction also, but figures are very important for me. Figurative, that's why figurative abstraction artist, I call myself. And Ram Kumar, for that matter, he was a very good figurative painter. Very good figurative painter. And I wouldn't call him an abstract painter. His abstraction again was from Varanasi or Banaras, whatever you call it in English, and more or less a figurative, sort of a influenced artist. And in Chennai, many people think that quite a lot of artists are figurative, at the same time they go for abstraction. For example, Vishwanathan, who lives in Paris, he was my classmate, and Vishwanathan started figurative and went into Tantrism, and then he and Akitam Narayanan, both of them lived in Paris together, and they both were influenced by certain tantric, or what they call I can't get the word, but anyway, they're both very influenced by that particular thing, and then they've gone about, Vishwanathan has gone about complete abstract now. And so also many artists of South, particularly Chennai, are abstract painters. And I don't know what Ram Kumar thought of this particular school of painting of Chennai. I don't know. I don't know what he would have thought about it, what he would have done with it, how he was influenced by what was happening at that time. We make at least 15-20 years difference in our age. We don't belong to the same generation of artists. And I wonder what Ram Kumar thought about the Chennai art movement.
That actually brings a lot of questions. I'm so happy you touched upon these topics. I think I'll layer a question towards Meera, since we are talking of kinship. You've spoken about the Cholamandal artist village, the different things that were happening. So clearly this is a very important moment in time in India, in the art scene, to understand what kind of styles were emerging, what kind of kinships were happening, how they were impacting each other. So maybe Meera, as you speak of these friendships, you can give us an idea of what all was emerging from India in that moment in time, especially when we speak of modernism and what modern art really meant.
So I would possibly start with the Progressive Artists Group. That was the PAG, which really was a post-colonial generation of artists. I mean, India had just got its freedom, that whole generation was actually looking for a new visual language. They did not want to fall into what was being taught in the art colleges, which was a British academic realist style of painting, and instead they were looking for something which was also not the Bengal school of painting, because they found that very revivalist as well as sentimental. So they wanted to move away from both the academic and this kind of sentimentality. And so they were looking actually westwards. So we know a number of them, like Raza. A lot of the other artists also traveled to both Paris and London. So among the PAG, I think, so that was one group. And Ram Kumar was affiliated with he was friends with the PAG. He was not part of the PAG, but he was friends with the PAG. And he would often travel from Delhi to Bombay, and would stay sometimes. When Raza was there, he would stay with Raza. Gaitonde took him to his home, as well, his where he lived with his family. At the same time, what happened in Delhi was that there was the area around, Jangpura, Nizamuddin, in central Delhi, where a number of these artists lived together. And we also have to remember that this was a time when the art infrastructure was not really fully developed. There was no real market to speak of. So artists often came together out of friendship, kinship, but also commercially to sell together. I mean, it was very difficult. There was hardly any space to have a solo show. So it really made sense. And I think, for Gaitonde, I remember being part of the Bombay group, and he said the only reason he was part of that group was that they could come together, do shows together, and sell works, right? So even, in this Nizamuddin area, so a lot of artists came in, right? So Krishan Khanna was one of the pioneering people who would try to get homes for artists who came from outside. Ram Kumar lived in Jangpura, which is very close to Nizamuddin. When Gaitonde came, Krishan Khanna got him a place also first in Jangpura and then, in Nizamuddin West. You had Nasreen Mohammadi living there. You had Zarina Hashmi living there. When Al-Qazi came, he lived there. You had Mohan Bhagat, Mohan Rakesh, who was the playwright, he was there. Vanraj Bhatia, who the music composer, was there. So it was really a thriving ecosystem of artists, and Hussain was there as well. So they were all friends and sort of working together in this period of time. I can maybe just talk about two groups, Priya, if that's okay. So one group at that time, this was, remember that we had partition, and a lot of the refugees, as Priya mentioned in her walkthrough, had come into Delhi. And they had settled around the Karol Bagh area. At that time, first Ram was in the Karol Bagh area, so he did sort of, see all these refugees, etc. And a lot of these artists who were refugees had moved from Lahore to Delhi. And they formed the group, which was called the Delhi Shilpi Chakra. And Ram Kumar was affiliated with the Delhi Shilpi Chakra. So you had people, I mean, the father figure of that movement was really B.C. Sanyal. But you also had Premnath Mago in there, you had K.S. Kulkarni in there. So these were sort of some of the groups that were forming. And also in Bombay, what happened in the 50s, and this is something that I came across during my research, was that I think Hussain, Krishan Khanna, Ram, and if I'm not mistaken, Tayyab, they started a group called Shila Lake, which was doing prints. Now, because works were expensive and they wanted to make sure that they got out as many of the works possible, Hussain had met a businessman in the 50s who agreed to sponsor this initiative of theirs. And so they got together and created this whole portfolio of prints, which unfortunately was not commercially successful at all. Which is such a contradiction to what we experience today, for the works. So these are some of the groupings that we had. Even the Delhi Shilpi Chakra did not really want to do what the Bengal school was doing. They all wanted to forge a new visual language, something that kept up with the spirit of a newly independent India, and try and sort of find their way, find that language that could express that.
Right, so that makes it apparent that there were all these efforts being made in defining this new visual language that will determine what the modern Indian art would be. And we do know that Ram was in all of these circles and was largely associated with this, but as the exhibition also brings out this other side of him, that is of a writer, was that something that was well known in the circles, or was it something that Ram was still doing in his own time, in his own way?
So Ram as a writer was not really well known. I mean, at least for us, I mean, of course, I am several generations younger than he is, but from whatever I sort of, knew about him, we did know that his brother, Nirmal Varma, he was a towering figure in Hindi literature. I mean, he had also contributed to this Nahi Kahani, which is this new Hindi writing, this whole wave of new Hindi writing. And I remember reading, and this for my research again. So Ram's father was a government servant, based out of Shimla. I read that he was, a family of 8 brothers and sisters. And so when they first started, Ram Kumar says that there was no sort of creative atmosphere at home. But yet he and his brother Nirmal got down to writing. And they were writing these short, fictionalized stories. And that's how, and Priya, I think, it's evident in the exhibition as well. So that's how they started. And then after that, Ram gravitated towards painting. His brother, Nirmal Varma, became that celebrated writer that he is. But I do think that there was this, I think both of them were influenced from each other. I think, Ram in his paintings did, as you mentioned, had themes of alienation, in the city, etc. And these are really themes that Nirmal Varma also dealt with in his writing, and maybe Ram in his writing. I'm so happy that you brought out these books because I had never seen them before. As I said, we knew Ram, was conversant in Hindi, would write, etc. But I never knew that these books existed and one could even, lay one's hands on them. So that I think in the exhibition is also really a revelation of the writer in Ram. And I think his brother writing on existentialism, on writing on alienation, all these themes also must have influenced Ram. So I think it was like a mutually sort of influencing sort of system between both brothers. One, the well-known artist, and the other the writer. Yeah.
So, since Sir also spoke about abstraction quite a bit and how that was becoming a medium for many of the artists in South, I'm wondering whether, how do you analyze this shift that we see in his practice over time from figurative works that are very well known, and then the travels that start happening, and there is a shift towards abstraction that is seen. And from an artist's point of view, as you were explaining, how you cannot really remove figuration from abstraction and vice versa. If you could just again highlight how that happens. And then if Meera, if you can talk about how this happened over time and what kind of inspirations might there be.
Ram Kumar, from my point of view, I'm an outsider there. I don't belong to Delhi, so I don't know.
From your own experience as an artist, we just want to understand.
Artist,
yes.
And I think Ram Kumar got influenced by landscapes. It is the landscape which influenced Ram Kumar, and he did a lot of Banaras series. And that's why, when I see his exhibition, a part of the exhibition I saw today evening, and I felt, accepting some 2-3 paintings, most of them are figurative paintings. I do not know why he is called abstract painter. I have no idea. But he was leaning towards abstraction, not really abstract painting. Like in Chennai, Adimulam, another artist, who used to, from landscape, he went on to abstraction. His was completely non-figurative. Finally, the last 2-3 years, what he did, he was so popular and he was just using colors. That's all, nothing more than that. I don't see this in Ram Kumar's case, excepting some few paintings which I see in the exhibition here. I see him doing series of paintings based on Banaras and things like that. I don't know whether himself was happy to be called an abstract painter, whereas I thought Vasudev Gaitonde, I consider him as a pure abstract painter. He got into the philosophy of J. Krishnamurti and some others, and then his abstraction was total. I don't know whether he accepted it or not. My friend would say that, but his abstraction was total. I consider him as the greatest abstract painter India produced. And abstraction is there in everybody's work. There is no doubt about it. If you must see that, you must analyze the artist and start seeing the work. Then you can see the abstraction. Abstraction is there even in miniatures, for that matter. Though there are figures are going towards abstraction. A tree is abstracted, a river is abstracted, So I think Indian art generally has these qualities in it. And those artists who, for example, Picasso was never an abstract painter. He was completely figurative. So also Souza, an Indian painter. Tayyab Mehta, not abstract painter. Whereas Raza, he went into abstraction, but his was more decorative, pattern, and that came to his eye finally. And so I do not know where to place Ram Kumar in this. Whether you call him an abstract painter or not. It's a big question for me.
How would you respond to that, Meera?
Yeah, very, very interesting set of thoughts, and I, in a way, agree with you that, you know, a lot of artists have said that, you know, all painting can be also viewed as abstract, or Gaitonde actually did not like these labels, abstract or figurative at all. But coming back to Ram Kumar, I mean, let me just go back to what the critic Richard Bartholomew had written. He'd said that in 47, when we got independence, most of the artists were figurative. But by the 60s, there was a shift towards abstraction. Whether it was Krishan Khanna, whether it was Ram Kumar, whether it was Gaitonde. Gaitonde actually started as a figurative painter, a figurative artist. I mean, he was a very, very good figurative artist. So, you know, Mohan Samant, to take a few names, you know, they were all people who started off figurative, moved towards abstract. In Ram Kumar's case, of course, you have that he goes to Paris. He studies, as you said, under Fernand Léger. And André, I can't pronounce the surname, but Roté, I would say. And so he is influenced by Cubism, he's influenced by Tubism, which we know that Léger, you know, that was the sort of school that he propagated. And then he comes back, and his initial works are very figurative. You have these men in dark suits, very gloomy, there's a lot of melancholy in them. So you have that kind of thing. And then gradually he goes then to Benares, as we know, in the 60s. And there you suddenly sort of see the cityscape. So definitely recognizable forms in terms of streets, in terms of houses, etc. But it starts bordering on abstraction, and you don't see the human figure. You know, previously you could see the human figure, but if you look at his Benares cityscapes, it's completely evacuated of the human figure, right? And then he moves on, because he's also spending time in Sanjoli, in Shimla, as well as in Ranikhet. He also goes to Kashmir. We know that he's traveled to Ladakh. He's even traveled to Machu Picchu, which I don't know whether many people know. So Ram Kumar really then gets influenced, and then you see his work really mirroring the landscape. So, you know, what you see downstairs in some of the works and all of that. And so I think there is a shift in Ram Kumar's work. He does come back to the figurative, surprisingly enough, in the late 90s and 2000s. And I just want to quote what he says about his work and abstraction, if you'll allow me. Sorry, just getting the page up. So there are two of them. And he said, after making figurative works for over a decade, I felt I had done all that I could have. If I continued, I would just be repeating myself. There was an ambiguity about abstracts. I had something in mind, but chose not to title them. So everyone is free to have their own interpretation. I think this is also something that Richard Bartholomew talks about, where he says a number of these painters actually then they started with figuration, but they felt that they'd exhausted the potential of the human figure, that the human figure had said whatever it could. In Ram Kumar's case, I think it was also that he saw, there was so much of pathos that he saw when he was doing these figurative melancholic figures, that and he was so, and he, you know, he did a lot around the human condition. He felt that that one figure could not encapsulate the larger suffering and the human condition. And maybe that's also, it could be, you know, a reason why he veered towards abstraction. The other thing he says, and I want to quote, is about color. So he says here, there is an enigmatic mystery about the inner life of a color applied on canvas. It stands out by itself in the beginning, but slowly it starts building up relationships with other areas, other colors and forms. This continues. There is a pause, a silence, an accident, and in the end, some sort of harmony. So this is to just quote Ram Kumar himself.
That's beautiful. I think it has brought so many points to the surface, like Sir said, and what he said about abstraction in art, and how it's not just a visual quality to be studied, but it can be so much more. And then the question of these labels and nomenclature and things, and also to understand then from your point of view how there's this, it's evident that a lot of artists are also moving from figurative to abstraction in that particular period, in those few decades, and how they are thinking, how it's shaping their work. Just thinking of that time and whatever was happening socially, politically, and looking at the relevance of these works today in spaces and why they need to be looked at and studied. Do you think Ram's work speaks differently today, or can it like speak of the same emotions and thoughts and abstraction in a metaphorical way even today? Both of your thoughts.
You mean socially also?
Yes.
I feel that Ram Kumar's works, I do not know whether he has got any, he had, because she's a better person to talk about Ram Kumar's social works.
This is where we also sort of tap in. We can consider the kind of writing he was also doing in the time, the kind of grey areas he was tapping into.
The writing was not as effective of his. Whether he is a good writer or an ordinary writer, one doesn't know. But he was not spoken so much as a writer in his lifetime, only as an artist. His brother was known as a writer, but not Ram Kumar, though he used to write. And what influenced him, I think, is a sort of a writing he had in his mind. You know? And he was not a great writer, but he was definitely influenced by his thinking of what to write, and what is in his writing. And that's what I feel in Ram Kumar. Because I don't know him that well. I only met him, as I told you earlier, some 2-3 times. If you talk to me about some other artist whom I met, Souza, I met him number of times. Whenever I went to New York, I went to see his studio on 80th Street. I would call him, "You are one of the great artists of India. So why don't you just come back to India?" He said, "No. This is the place for art, New York." I said, "Where is your work? I want to see your work in any museum, in any gallery." There is no work. But he wouldn't believe it. Finally, he came to India and he died here. It's a good thing which happened to him. I don't know about Ram Kumar. He belongs to the artist group, very well known artist group in Delhi, but always an individual. He didn't join himself in a group like Progressive Painters Association or Calcutta artists or Chennai artists, like that. He didn't. He was an individual, very quiet. Even while he talked also, I think he was very, very quiet. Quietly was expressing, and his paintings show that for me. His quiet nature and his writing sense, you can see in the artwork of his.
That sensitivity shows.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, both, I think, whether it's his figurative works with their themes of alienation, I think really speak to us today. I mean, we're all, supposedly hyper-connected, but the sense of alienation, especially in the cities, is even more. So I think, that period of Ram's work definitely speaks to us. But also the abstraction, because I think, a lot of human emotions are abstract. Whether it is joy, whether it is sadness, these are all abstract emotions. So as he himself says, when you see his works, you can interpret them, or even as you said in your walkthrough today, Priya, that, see in it what you want to, right? It's your, in the state of mind that you are in, and what you're going to discover in that work. And the same work will speak to you in 1,000 different ways every time you go and see it, right? I mean, because it's not defined, it is open to interpretation. And each time you see it, you engage with it, you interpret it in a different way. And it evokes different emotions in you. So I think from that perspective, definitely, I mean, I think, his resonances, whether it was figurative or not figurative, they speak to us today.
Thank you. I think at this point, I would like to open the floor to the audience if anybody has any questions. And while they think of that, I can ask you, if someone walks out of the exhibition today, what is the one thing they should take away from it? Which is a very standard question. I'm also curious.
I would say the discovery of Ram Kumar's books and the fact that he was a writer, which is just not known. And I think that's really a remarkable thing that you've done by digging these writings out. I mean, and it's also translated into English, so, more people have access to it. So I think that we see Ram Kumar also in a slightly different light from the way we viewed him, all these years. So I think, that's one thing I hope people take away with them.
Yeah. I would walk away with, if somebody wants to walk away with the painting, well, that's a good thing to do.
Hopefully not.
I'll take the red one.
If Abhishek Padar allows to take away. Otherwise, I think as my friend said, the quality of an artist, the people who go to different exhibitions, different artists they see, the experience, and it's a different experience altogether to see Ram Kumar here. For a general gallery goer. I'm not talking about the artist going to the gallery, I'm talking about the general gallery goer. And I think they learn a lot by seeing his works, and they discuss his works also when they go out of the gallery. That's a very important thing to happen.
Thank you. I think with
Some
that
questions.
One
note,
question.
there's a question.
Thank
there's
you.
two questions.
My name's Arun. I had a question integrating the writer, Ram Kumar, and the painter. In what you said earlier in the earlier session about the idea of space and pause, which was reflective in his writing. So since you knew him and met him a few times and you commented on his writing and you being an artist, sir, I was curious if you could reflect on his thought process on pause and space, if that reflected in his art and in what way.
I would say that, he was, so there were two sides of Ram. One was the outgoing side, which we know of, and the other was also the reticent introverted, where he withdrew from the world. And I think for anybody who's a writer, I think you do need those spaces of solitude in which you can cogitate, and he was both. So he did withdraw. He had these periods of really withdrawal, getting into himself, and then reflecting on I called it actually traversing the mindscape. So he was looking at the outer landscape. He was working it through his mind. Cogitating on it, and then it came back on his canvas. Right. That was the process. So it was really, this whole, what happens to the thought process and to a person who's more reticent, who sort of withdraws from the world. So I do think that there were two sides of Ram Kumar, the one that also went to Benares and really immersed himself in that, in that very, very crowded landscape, and had these social connections, and yet there was the Ram Kumar that did withdraw. If that answers your question, that's it.
There's no right or wrong.
It is also very interesting thing that I find.
If I may,
Yes.
just taking that what you just said,
Yeah.
and as an artist, is taking what you said about pause and space, about specific to Ram Kumar. If you can reflect, how did that reflect in his art? The idea of solitude, space, pause. Like, for instance, there's a famous saying, all music is created in the silence between the two notes. That's what you're saying about his writing, how he was expressing his solitude. And if you can reflect on how and if that reflected in his art.
I see everybody's art, anybody's art for that matter, I see how it is done. I don't like to see the whole thing as a painting. And for me, it's a learning process. And I try to see as many paintings as possible to learn myself what can attract me in that painting. The process of painting or the coloration or figuration, whatever it is called. And even it can come from child art also. So I make it a point to see as many exhibitions as possible, if at all it's possible, and I try to get something out of it. I never consider that person is great and so one has to go and see his works. It's like that. It's like that.
I think one more question.
Yeah.
Hi. So when I read about the descriptions on Benares, I reminded of Albert Camus' writing on Prague. On Prague,
Yeah.
Prague, the cityscape. And he also, Ram Kumar also studied in France. I'm just connecting the dots, and after 1940s, it can be post-partition or it can be post-World War, and the world is looking towards existentialism, new ideas are coming up on individualism. And how are Indian artists kind of translating or reinventing existentialism in our context? like comparing Prague of Camus with Banaras of Ram Kumar. Thanks.
Heavy question, you want to take that?
If I understood properly what you have asked, my answer is this. Till late 50s, Indian artists were looking towards West. Most of the Indian artists, if you see their work, it is influenced by the West. It is only after that one can see a change in each one's approach. There are so many different isms came in India, and Calcutta produced excellent artists. So also Bombay, Delhi, Chennai. And only thing is that it is my complaint even now is that not much has been written about the artists of that generation between 35 age, say 1935 to present 19, say another 10 years before. They have continuously done books themselves, they brought out, but the artists from Ghulam Sheikh onwards till I would say 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So many artists India has produced, and excellent artists they have produced, but nothing has been written about them collectively. And that's the biggest drawback. I've spoken this to Lalit Kala Academy people also, National Gallery of Modern Art. Nobody is interested. Nobody is interested. They say that you have got books, you have got galleries. Yeah, that's true. But after Kishan Khanna, after Tayyab Mehta, or after Swaminathan, where are the books? Generally about individuals, about 30, 35, nearly 30, 35 artists who have been, even today, are doing some very good work. It has not come out, unfortunately. But the thing is that the art did change from late 50s. Each one started thinking whether what one should do. In fact, in Cholamandal we had a debate on that. Some of the artists whom I mentioned today, some of us, we did debate on this. I, for one, didn't look at Picasso or Braque or Modigliani for more than a year and a half. I didn't want to see their paintings or films, anything. I kept in my house, in my studio, miniatures. I listened to Carnatic and Hindustani music. Because what influences you are Madhubani paintings, or Bastar village sculptures. These are the things which you see from morning till evening in your house. That changes a lot. Your mood of thinking is different, it becomes different. So I did like that, and some of my friends, they did like that. Haridasan did like that, Vishwanathan did like that. And so the art became different, at least when I'm talking about Chennai. And same thing, I suppose, I see in Calcutta, Bombay, and Delhi. There is definite difference in what their forefathers were doing and what they are doing. what they were doing. Yeah.
So visibly there is this push and pull of what is happening around the globe, but also at the same time contextualizing what is happening around you and finding that grounding. And it is a rich landscape to study, you're right. There's also a lot yet to be written about and discovered, while there is a lot of literature that exists about a certain portion of it. Anything you would like to add to that, Meera, and maybe a closing note that you would like to share?
No, I think it's a very important thing that only certain artists have been written about. I think that was when we were discussing before the panel discussion today about, there are so many gaps actually, and I think a lot more research needs to go in, primary research, which I feel needs to be there. I mean, again, I'd just go back to the Gaitonde book. It was really for me trying to put together a jigsaw puzzle, because there's no documentation. We've been very bad about documenting, our artistic history as well. I mean, even if there were articles written, you can't find them anymore. How many of them have really been digitally preserved or are there in libraries? You do not have it. And then obviously a whole generation of artists has passed on. That's been the huge challenge. I mean, because we did not document them while they were living, right? So I do think so I think there's still, I feel, time. I think people should really get down to doing primary research, and definitely many, many more publications are needed. I mean, I think it's, you might have maybe 5 books on Krishan Khanna, but what about all the other artists who are out there on whom nothing has been written? So I think, and I think shows like the one that we have here really also then still bring out insights into artists who we think we know well, right? So, I mean, everybody thinks we know Ram Kumar, but we don't. There's certain aspects we don't. So I think, this is a way of really, I think more research is what I would say needs to be done.
I think that's a note we can conclude on, and I think the takeaway here would be revisiting, really looking deeper, and the show gives us that opportunity to view Ram Kumar again, not just through his paintings and from what we know of him, but through his writing as well, which Sir also mentioned, shapes, now that we look at it parallelly, a lot of his work, and it really puts the pieces together. So maybe all these artists that we speak of, the deeper we dig, the more we get to know, and the others that are yet to be spoken of. And that's all from our end. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing these stories, anecdotes, observations. It was really a pleasure.